Hi, Elise Dewsbury here with another in my series of how not to get feedback from Elise. I'm going to start a quick little mini series of things about the work of a scene, what you want to accomplish when you're writing a scene. And it's going to come in a few different parts as we discuss the different things that a scene should be working to accomplish, that every scene should be trying to accomplish. I'm going to start with the moment before. This is a term that's really uh, familiar to actors. Actors always are always told to be thinking, when they enter a scene, to be thinking about the moment before. What were they doing just before the scene started? And how does that affect their characters so that they come in activated and ready to play the scene because they are truly believing where they have just come from. As a writer, I think it's also really important for you to be thinking about what was the moment before for all of the characters in this scene. When you start a new scene, what were all these people doing right before the scene started, and therefore what energy are they coming into the scene with? We should have some kind of a sense of what just happened to them, and you might want to make it something interesting so that they can come in with a point of view, with an attitude, with a purpose, with a goal, with something that they're reacting to. This relates pretty directly to another term you may have heard called burying the lead. And this is it's an old newspaper term, and it's actually LEDE, lead. But the basic meaning of it is that you take, in newspaper writing, it's about when you write an article, and then the thing that's really important about the article, you don't make it clear that that's where you're headed until much later. So you're just sort of talking about something, and then eventually drop some really interesting information that makes people go, wow, well, that changes everything. If I'd known that, if I'd known that's what this was about, if I'd known where you were headed, all of this would have been different. I think that bearing the lead is something that applies very much to the work of a scene and is attached a bit to the moment before. Because if a character has just had something happen to them that is exciting, terrifying, whatever it is, whatever emotion it has caused for this character, when they come into the scene, that's the emotion they're going to pursue because that is the thing that is the most important to them. So if you have your character delay that and come into a scene and have, a standard conversation with someone and then say, oh, by the way, I was just shot, or your father just told me that he's divorcing your mother, or so if you delay that information or bury the lead, then it's not going to seem realistic to us. It's going to be a surprise. We're not going to understand why it's happening, and we're just not going to believe it. Because if that thing were true, your character would not have been able to put off saying it for so long. Um, or if it were important, as important as I think you want us to think it is. There's a movie recently that illustrated this for me in a really funny, overt kind of a way. To give you an example, there was a movie called The Post, which starred Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, and they were both newspaper people from the Washington Post. And there was a scene when they were meeting for breakfast, and I guess I think Tom Hanks was already seated at the table, and Meryl Streep came in, and she came in saying, "I have some really important news for you." I think she says something like, "Let me just, yeah, she's late. She's late for this is like a regular breakfast they have." So she comes in and she's late, and the first thing she says is, "I'm sorry, I'm late. There's a really important reason." And then Tom Hanks has some reason why he has to say, "Okay, well, hang on a sec, because," and he has something important he needs to tell her, so she doesn't get to finish her sentence. And then and then and they get talking about other things. They get talking about other things, and then later on, she mentions the topic comes back around, and she mentions that the reason she was late was because she'd had a meeting with somebody who was really important to to the topic that they were talking about, or something that was really important to them. I forget the exact details. And he says, "Oh my God, why didn't why did you never told me who the meeting was with that made you late?" And Meryl Streep says, her actual line in the movie is, "Oh my God, I buried the lead," which is of course a newspaper joke. But but what that illustrates for me is an interesting way that the writers of the scene got away, sort of worked their way around the fact that they knew that this was the most important information for her character. She had just come from this meeting with someone, and she knew it was really important to Tom Hanks, and so she was going to have to address it. But for whatever reason, in the writing of the scene, they didn't want her to address it until later. But they had her address it immediately and then get distracted and taken off topic, or partially address it, then got taken off topic, and then was able to bring it back up again and make a joke about the fact that it was important and she'd forgotten about it. If, on the other hand, you had a character come into a weekly meeting, breakfast meeting with someone, and just sit down and say, "Oh, sorry I'm late, and let's talk," and they just start doing their regular business meeting, and then the character suddenly said, "Oh, by the way, I just came from a meeting with so and so, and this is the person they've been trying to get a meeting with forever." It wouldn't make sense then that the character didn't come in going, "I'm sorry I'm late," but it's because that would be what's on their mind. That's what I mean by the moment before. If it's important to them, if they know it's important to the person they're coming to see, if it causes some kind of emotion or attitude or something in them, it needs to be addressed immediately. So those are the two things about the moment before that I think you need to consider when you're writing a scene. What happened in the moment before for all the characters, and then make sure that the characters are full of that moment before when the scene starts, that they don't delay their reaction to or discussion of this moment before unless you figure out some really good reason why it gets delayed. But they need to be full of that moment before. So make sure that moment before is active and interesting, and that your characters are very much vitally and actively aware of that moment before when the scene starts. So that is the moment, one of the workings of a scene, the moment before, and we'll talk about more of that sort of thing next month. Bye-bye.